Writing the final draft of your standard operating procedures can be unnerving. What if you forgot something? Will your team even use it? Did you cover all the laws in your state, region, or country? By the end of this video, you will discover what causes standard operating procedures to fail and why it sometimes feels impossible to sign off on that final draft. Hi, I'm Liz Goodman. As a certified nursing assistant, infection control assistant, office manager, and finally nurse, I learned the hard way that if your systems are a mess, so is your business. If you're an entrepreneur and your day-to-day operations feels inconsistent, it's not your fault. No one taught you to systemize your business for success and profit. Process to Profit helps authors, coaches, and consultants get crystal clear about their systems with the Business Productivity Framework. In this video, I will cover how to write your first standard operating procedure draft in under 1 hour. Second, how to protect yourself and your business legally. And third, how to ensure team buy-in for your business systems. Let's admit it, staring at a blank piece of paper and even knowing where to begin to write the first draft of your standard operating procedure can be super overwhelming. Call it writer's block or whatever you want. It can be a serious inhibitor to actually getting your final draft of your standard operating procedure complete because you can't finish what you never began. As promised, I'm going to lay out how you can get a first draft of your standard operating procedure in under 1 hour. Sounds impossible, doesn't it? First, I'm going to have you open your favorite AI tool, whether that's Gemini or ChatGPT or whatever it is, it doesn't matter which one. Then you're going to give it as much detail as you can about what you do, your title, what you specialize in, and then you're going to use the following prompt. I am a, whatever your title is, so in my case, I'm a system strategist. Can you write a standard operating procedure for the process you need? Then transfer the procedure that it creates into a document. The next step is to walk through the steps that AI suggested and either keep or delete them depending on how your business works. Once you've customized the standard operating procedure, you have your very first working draft. Congratulations, that's a huge step. No matter what you do for a living, there is a set of laws, ordinances, and expectations that you must follow in order to run your business legally, whether it's the IRS, OSHA, or just a regular business license. You must make sure that when you write your standard operating procedures, they comply with all applicable laws. There is a reason I made this portion of my system the second sub-step. If you do not address legality immediately when creating your standard operating procedures, it can cause serious complications down the road, especially if you make it as far as the final draft and have your team regularly following something that is basically breaking the law. So I highly recommend doing your due diligence after creating the first draft of your standard operating procedure to protect yourself and your business. So let me tell you a personal story. I hire people from all over the world. And in order to hire someone internationally, there's a very special form that you must fill out and your VA must fill out in order for your hire to be considered legal. Again, these guys are virtual assistants, so they have their own businesses, and it's very important that you're on the same page. So about the second person I hired, I started doing some research because I take onboarding very seriously and wanted to make sure I was doing all the steps and doing it legally. Come to find out, there is a document you have to fill out, so I filled that out for my virtual assistants. And then obviously I sent them a copy and they signed it and filled out their portion. And now the onboarding process for my VAs is 100% legal. It's just so important that you make sure that you are doing those things to keep yourself legal. If you don't have this document on record for yourself and you also hire virtual assistants from outside of the United States, I highly recommend you do some research, figure out what that form is, and then get it taken care of now. If you're listening to this and thinking, I need this in my business, don't wait. Head to processtoprofit.org, that is process 2, profit.org, and grab our free Process to Profit Quick Start Guide. It walks you step by step through how to simplify your operations, tighten up your marketing systems, and make sure you're actually set up to scale without the chaos. It is 100% complimentary, and it'll give you clarity immediately. Another challenging aspect of creating your standard operating procedure is getting your team to actually use them. If all they do is sit on the drive collecting dust, all the work you went through to create them was wasted. I have built several steps into the business productivity framework to ensure that your team actually use the procedures you create. First, we ask your team for input on your draft, SOP, that very first draft you created, the one you created just 2 steps ago. We get their input and we actually have them walk through it, walk through all the steps and use the standard operating procedure as though it's already the final say. Then you come back and you get real-time feedback. This does several things. You get real information from real people who actually do the tasks every day. This honors your team and involves them in the process. They're people, they just want to be involved. And that is important. The more they're a part of the building process, the more likely they are to use the final product. We also attach links of the standard operating procedure in the task management software so they can be easily found. If the team has to go digging for them, they're much less likely to use them and reference them. We use ClickUp, and there's a place in ClickUp where you can attach documents. And my standard operating procedures lives both in an official manual in Google Drive that I've created so that once they're finalized, they live there. I have also created it within the documents within ClickUp. And then I've linked that document, whichever it is for that particular task, for that standard operating procedure, to that task. All they have to do is a single click and they can pull it up and see exactly how it works. So today we covered a quick way to get your first draft done so you can get through the process to finalize your standard operating procedures. We also talked about the importance of following local laws when creating your standard operating procedures to protect yourself and your team. Finally, we talked about motivating your team to actually follow the procedures that you've worked so hard on. Remember, without a framework, scattered process never become a system. The business productivity framework fixes that. If this episode helped you think different about your business, subscribe and share it with another serious business owner. And remember, profit is not random, it's built. If you want the missing piece that makes this framework actually work in your business, watch the next video.